Welcome to the quiet edges of history. You don't need to do anything now. Just lie back, breathe slowly, and let the world of the past unfold gently around you. Tonight, we travel far, into the golden silence of the Sahara. There, where sand stretches endlessly beneath the stars and winds speak in a language older than memory, we will find a forgotten kind of love. A romance buried not by scandal or shame, but by time, by silence, and by the ever-moving dunes. This is not a tale of kings and wars, but of glances exchanged in the shade of camel-hide tents, of calloused hands brushing against indigo robes, of poems whispered in dialects that have no written form. Tonight, we tell a story from the heart of the desert, one that blends legend and memory, tradition and longing. A story of the Tuareg, the blue-veiled nomads of North Africa, and the subtle, enduring romance that once bloomed in their wandering world. You are safe here, in the warmth of distant centuries. Let us begin. Imagine yourself in the cool shadow of a tent woven from tightly braided camel wool, thick enough to shield the midday heat, yet light enough to sway in the desert breeze. The air inside is still and fragrant, earthy, soft. It smells faintly of incense from the morning fire, of worn leather, and something sweeter, perhaps dried dates, or the faint perfumed oil that lingers on the pillows. You wake slowly. The fabric above your head moves with the wind, and far off, the low moan of a camel is answered by another. There is a rhythm to the life around you. The soft clinking of metal against saddle, the creak of wooden wheels, the swish of robes. The sun has not yet begun to burn. You are alone, but not truly. Somewhere nearby, behind another tent flap, or beneath the sparse shade of an acacia tree, they are waiting. The one who sees you, even when others cannot. Outside, the camp begins to stir. Children chase chickens through the sand. A woman calls softly for her daughter to fetch water. Men crouch near the fire, murmuring over tea that will take hours to brew. Not because it must, but because it always has. You rise slowly, wrapping yourself in layers of indigo cloth. The tagal must, a veil that shields not just your skin from the sun, but your emotions from wandering eyes. Among the Tuareg, veils are not symbols of modesty imposed. Rather, they are declarations of identity. Even men veil their faces, leaving only the eyes. Windows, two truths unspoken. You slip out, pretending to look for something. A saddlebag, perhaps, or a tool misplaced. But your footsteps trace a path you've walked many times before. And there, just beyond the line of camels and sleeping dogs, they are waiting. They do not speak. They never do, not here. But they smile, and the smile is enough. You sit together in the hush, fingers nearly touching. A stone between you, just there, plain gray. Only the two of you know what it means. Placed it there last night, and now they have come. This is how love lives here. Not in grand declarations or flares of passion, but in a shared glance, in the placement of an object, in poems murmured beneath your breath, never written down, never repeated aloud. There is power in silence and safety. Later, the caravan will move again, perhaps east toward God or Gotham's, perhaps north to the markets of Tripoli. It doesn't matter. Wherever the camels walk, wherever the stars point, you will find each other again. At night, when the camp quiets and the children sleep, the fire dies low. Someone sings, always softly. The songs are ancient, passed down through the women. They speak of longing, of journeys, of lovers who walk together but never arrive. And you listen, not beside them, but close enough to hear. That is enough. This is how it has always been. This is how it was. Perhaps, if you listen carefully, the desert may whisper that it still is. Long before the blue veils of the Tuareg swept across the Sahara as we know it, before the caravans charted their slow and deliberate paths across the dunes, there was a woman whose footsteps marked the beginning. Her name was Hinan, or rather, that is the name we've been given, passed down like wind-carried stories, shaped gently by time. She is remembered as a founding mother, a noble ancestor of the Kela Tuareg, and a queen whose journey began in exile, or perhaps in longing. She lived, it is believed, around the 4th or 5th century. The sands have worn away the exact date, and while her story is wrapped in fragments, part legend, part oral tradition, part archaeology, the thread of love that runs through it remains quiet and enduring. Imagine her not as a myth, but as a woman exiled, or perhaps fleeing with companions and supplies strapped to camels. A noble woman of Tafilelt, in what is now Morocco, crossing the vast sea of sand toward the Ahagar Mountains, the stone heart of southern Algeria. Some say she was banished after a political upheaval. Others say she followed a dream, but most agree she did not walk alone. Always beside her was Takamat, a loyal handmaiden, or perhaps something more. The legends do not say lover, but they speak of an unshakable bond, a closeness that endured war, migration, and the endless silence of the desert. They were never parted, even in death. Their arrival in the Ahagar region marks the beginning of a civilization. There, beneath the red cliffs, Hinan built a life, not as a refugee, but as a leader. She united families. She was known for her wisdom, her fairness, and for something more difficult to define, a kind of reverence. Even centuries later, Tuareg women would trace their lineage to her proudly, as if through her they inherited the right to roam, to rule, and to speak their truths from behind the veil. When her tomb was found in the 1920s near Abalessa, it was a revelation. Inside, archaeologists discovered her body laid in state. Gold, silver, and jewelry of Roman origin were scattered about her. She wore heavy bracelets and a diadem, elegant even in death. She was not buried alone. Nearby there was another. The identity is still debated. Some believe it was Takamat, as the oral tales suggest. We do not know exactly what love looked like to them. There are no letters, no paintings, no detailed inscriptions. But in the quiet of that ancient tomb, two women, one a leader, the other her companion, rest side by side beneath the desert sky. In the stories still told among the Tuareg today, Hinan is never alone. She is always with her companion. Not a distant queen on a pedestal, but a woman who walked the hard paths, endured the heat and wind, and found not only survival, but belonging. The Tuareg have always valued the bond between people, not just marriage, but oaths, loyalties, and friendships so deep they become indistinguishable from love. In that way, Hinan's story endures, not as a tale of grand gestures, but as a quieter kind of love, the kind that moves beside you through exile and dust, that waits with you in silence, that shares the weight of every footstep across the sand. That is how her people remember her, is how the desert keeps her. The desert holds many secrets, but among the Tuareg, none are more carefully guarded, or more beautifully expressed than love. In a land where water is more precious than gold, where survival depends on quiet discipline and the harmony of the caravan, courtship must be subtle, deliberate, sacred. There are no grand declarations, no public proposals. No florid love letters written with ink and sealed with wax. Instead, affection is spoken through objects, through gesture, and above all, through silence. Imagine yourself as part of a caravan camped beside a narrow oasis. And the air is thick with the hum of crickets and the soft clang of camel bells settling into the night. A fire crackles low. Someone pours tea 3 times, as is tradition. Each glass stronger, each one more bitter. And in your hand, wrapped in indigo cloth, is a bracelet. Heavy, silver, hammered into shape by a local smith whose father did the same, whose father before him taught the technique to his son. Each generation embedding meaning into every curve and etching. Among the Tuareg, silver is more than ornament. It is belief, protection, memory. It reflects light and repels evil. It is cool against the skin, like water made solid. And when shaped with care, it becomes language. Certain designs speak of affection. A bracelet with crossed lines might signal the intersection of 2 lives. A spiral suggests longing, or perhaps the unending nature of love. An engraved triangle could represent shelter, the shared home the giver longs to build. But there are rules. These tokens are not given lightly, and often not given in public. A young man might hand one over in the dim privacy of a tent, or slip it among a girl's belongings, hoping she will understand. If she wears it the next day, it is a silent yes. If it is never seen again, the message is understood quietly, without shame. Then there is the language of poetry, but not written on parchment. Tuareg love poems are often spoken or sung, passed from mouth to mouth, never quite the same each time, but always carrying something familiar. A lover might recite lines comparing his beloved's eyes to hidden wells, or laughter to the wind moving through date palms. But even these are rarely said directly. Instead, a friend might be enlisted to carry the words. A cousin, a brother, a go-between. The poem travels across space like water poured from one vessel into another until it finds its way to the intended ear. And there are stories, always stories, of lovers who met only once a season as caravans crossed paths. They would exchange gifts, a lock of hair wrapped in cloth, a tiny carved spoon, a bead of blue glass said to protect against envy. Their meetings were brief, their words few, but these moments lingered for lifetimes. Privacy is not just preference here, it is protection. Love in this world is no less passionate for being concealed. It is all the more powerful for being folded into everyday life, stitched into clothing, hidden in coded patterns, murmured in dreams. And still today, in Tuareg music and dance, these echoes survive. There are songs in the Tend rhythm, sung only by women, that speak of longing, of waiting, of lives marked by absence and return. There are dances where young men and women circle each other slowly, never touching but watching, always watching. To love here is to endure, to wait, to understand that even the sand remembers if you move gently enough. In a world of wind and silence, the truest things are never spoken aloud. They are worn, they are carried, they are passed, hand to hand, like water from a well. Now, as we near the close of this quiet journey through the Sahara, we step gently into the world of the Tuareg elite, space where romance is wrapped not only in silence, but in power, in lineage, and in a social world unlike almost any other. In many parts of the world's past, nobility meant restriction, especially for women. But among the Tuareg, tradition moved to a different rhythm. Here, under the vastness of the desert sky, a unique social structure took shape, one where noble women held real influence. And men veiled their faces not out of submission, but as a mark of honor and identity. Let us begin with the women. Tuar. Noble women were known as Temenacult, respected leaders within matrilineal clans. Property, wealth, and social status often passed through the mother's line. A person's identity, their place in the world, came through their mother. In a world where so much was fleeting, water, shelter, trade, this foundation gave the Tuareg a distinct kind of stability. Women of the noble class were not cloistered. They managed households, yes, but they also recited poetry, advised in clan matters, carried the oral traditions of their people. They were both guardians and creators of history. And love, it was never simple, but it was, at times, surprisingly free. Among noble families, romantic bonds could be complex, sometimes strategic, and sometimes deeply personal. Tuareg society allowed for trial marriages, where a young couple might live together for a time before formal union. Divorce, while not ideal, carried no deep shame. A woman might return to her family's camp and live independently, if the bond did not last. And within noble families, these choices carried weight but not punishment. And always veiled in layers of silver and indigo moved the men. It is perhaps the most iconic image of Tuareg life. The blue-veiled warrior, face hidden except for the eyes, riding through dust and time. This veil, the tagal must, was worn from adolescence onward, a sign of adulthood, of propriety, of protection, not only physical, but spiritual. The Tuareg believed the mouth is a place of powerful energy, and to cover it is to preserve both modesty and dignity. It also meant that in love, women saw men's eyes, not their smiles. They read intention in the way he moved, the way he listened, the patience with which he poured tea. It was a romance shaped by restraint, not excess. Noble unions were often arranged, but that does not mean they were unfeeling. Within the indigo tents of the elite, lovers might share whispered conversations over slow-burning fires, might trade verses wrapped in metaphor until true meaning revealed itself. It might never speak of love directly, but show it in every action. Even queens like Hinan were remembered as both sovereign and lover. Though the precise stories have faded, their presence lingers in the way Tuareg nobility still honors the feminine, the matriarchal, the enduring strength of womanhood in desert life. There are tales, too, of forbidden love. A noble woman in love with a caravan guide, a warrior drawn to a woman promised to another clan. These stories, though not written down, are passed from voice to voice. Often, they end not in reunion, but in quiet heartbreak. A lover riding off beneath the stars, leaving only a piece of jewelry behind. But even these are not tragedies. In the Tuareg view of the world, love is a part of fate, but not its master. It may arrive, and it may leave, but it always leaves something behind. A song, a scar, a silence that speaks. And so, in the velvet-draped corners of noble tents, between sips of bitter tea and lines of ancient poetry, Tuareg love unfolds. Not loudly, but fully. In indigo veils and silver bracelets, in lineage traced through mothers, in stories told beside desert fires, in love that does not demand to be seen, but is deeply felt nonetheless. And now, as the last embers of our journey glow softly in the dark, we leave behind the shifting sands of the Sahara. The wind has quieted, the camels have stilled. The tents lie calm and folded against the chill of the desert night. The stories we've shared tonight were not loud ones, no trumpets of war, no resounding declarations. These were stories made of glances and gestures, of poetry and patient waiting. Love here moved gently, like wind across dunes, shaped not by drama, but by endurance. Hinan, the queen who came from exile, still rests beneath the desert she once crossed. Her tomb, a hushed chamber of stone and memory, holds the quiet echo of a journey, and, perhaps, of a love never named, but always present. The bracelets pass from one hand to another, the secret meanings carved into silver, the lines of songs sung softly into the night wind. All of it is still there if you listen. Still carried by the Tuareg people, still alive in the desert's breath. As you lie here now, still and warm, know that the world has always been filled with quiet love. Love that waited at the edge of a caravan. Love that traveled hundreds of miles in silence. Love that wore indigo and never spoke its name. It's comforting to know that even in the most unforgiving places, where water is rare and survival is hard, love still found a way to exist. Not just in passion, but in presence, in loyalty, in memory. Perhaps as sleep gently finds you now, you carry a little piece of that with you. A love story the desert kept safe, a whisper in the Sahara. Good night. Sleep well.